The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight.
If everybody here turned off your CNN, your Fox, your MSNBC, the topic is constantly politics. And that's part of what the American people are just sick of.
Once again, President Obama tells the American people that cable news is not helping the country. Karl Rove and Dick Morris will have some comments. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Did you know that Republicans are stupid and evil? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The Radical Loon website Daily Kos has a new poll out, but don't get too excited. Their poll in Massachusetts had the Senate race too close to call. Apparently, the leader of the Kos Brigade is writing a book comparing Republicans and conservatives to the Taliban. And so this poll was designed to back up his insane point of view. The survey says 39% of self-identified Republicans believe President Obama should be impeached. 63% believe he is a socialist. Only 42% of GOPers think the president was actually born in the United States. And 31% believe he hates white people. Now, if you believe that poll, you also believe Nancy Pelosi once dated Dick Cheney. The poll is a fraud, as is the website. But what is serious is the hatred that ideological internet nuts continue to spew out there. And they have enablers on TV and radio, as we all know. In fact, President Obama himself is very annoyed by the continuing intrusion that cable news has upon his administration. Earlier today, he said this while addressing Democratic senators.
If everybody here turned off your CNN, your Fox, just turn off the TV, MSNBC, blogs, and just go talk to folks out there instead of being in this echo chamber where the topic is constantly politics.
Now, Talking Points understands the president's peak, but when you consider that the mainstream media has been very friendly to Mr. Obama, his concern about cable TV news rings somewhat hollow. I mean, just about every major urban newspaper in America loves the president, so I don't know why he's so annoyed that there are a few verbal snipers on the tube. What Mr. Obama should be concerned about is the growing acceptance of lies by some Americans on both the left and the right. For example, by investigating the birth announcements in 2 Honolulu newspapers in August 1961, the Factor has proven that Barack Obama was indeed born in America. It would have been impossible for anyone to get bogus birth announcements into 2 newspapers. And why would anyone bother unless they knew baby Barack would someday become President Barack? The birther deal is just madness. On the left, we already told you about the crazy coast people, but somehow folks like Arianna Huffington are now considered legitimate news sources. That's what the president should be worried about. It is now very easy to demonize anyone in America, to slander and libel them all day long. There's no question the president has been treated unfairly in some precincts, but the garbage flows both ways, and Mr. Obama should point that out. And that's a memo. Now for the top story analysis. First up from Washington, Fox News political guy Karl Rove, a lifelong Republican. Mr. Rove, the president seems almost obsessed with cable TV, or am I wrong?
I think he's got a thin skin, so I think he's not only obsessed with cable TV, but also talk radio, and anybody who's a critic or finds fault in his otherwise sterling performance over the last year.
But he did mention CNN and MSNBC, which have been, friendly to him. He seems to believe that the punditry and the bloviating that you do, I do, and all of that has made it more difficult for him to do his job. Do you think that's true?
No, look, what's odd was he was basically saying 2 things. First of all, he was saying, turn off your television, members of Congress. He was talking to senators, Democratic senators. Turn off your television, don't watch cable TV, and just go talk to the folks. Well, we saw what happened when they went and talked to the folks in August during the break last year. When they went home to their districts and their states, they found out people were irritated and upset and angry about what they'd been learning through the media, cable TV and newspapers, about the health care bill. So, appreciate the advice, Mr. President, but they've already done that and they didn't like it. The second thing that's interesting is, he said basically, the American people are spending too much time on politics. Well, I remember last Friday when he was in front of the House Republican Conference and its meeting in Baltimore, and he was telling them, isn't it great that in a democracy we have a political opposition fulfills a vital role, because in politics we need to have debate and argument, and by doing so we make things better. So, it's a little bit of a disconnect. We ought to encourage more people to be involved in politics, and he did a lot of that himself as a candidate in 2008.
All right. Now, the Daily Kos, it's interesting. It's not a real power in America, but it does get picked up by powerful people, which is usually the way this game works. These far-out websites on the left and on the right a little bit, but not so much, filter their little garbage into the New York Times and other people, and then it gets mainstreamed out. They are presenting a picture of the Republican Party as a bunch of extreme loons. You know, they want Obama impeached. They think he's not born here. He's a racist. He hates white people. I don't think. You know, what I'm trying to get at is this. There's no doubt there's an extreme element of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. There's no doubt. They're there. But how much do you think that is?
You know, look, I think, first of all, remember this polling firm was the firm that said Martha Coakley was going to beat Scott Brown.
Yes, right. We pointed that out.
And Daily Kos, you're right about it. You know, there's an interesting study done several years ago in which somebody went and counted the profane words on liberal blogs and on conservative blogs. And, of course, Daily Kos was right up there near the top of the liberal blogs in its use of profanity. So, I mean, you know, we're being lectured, too, about what's appropriate or not appropriate by people who, you know, generate four-letter words on their blog, you know, all the time. But look, here's a point about Daily Kos. Daily Kos is trying to make an argument, and the argument falls flat on its face when you begin to look inside the numbers and you look at the methodology. They just simply said, do you think President Obama was born in the United States? You know, only 36% said, no, he wasn't. But by saying your choices are, yes, he was, no, he wasn't, or I don't know, I mean, they sort of drove things to these
right,
numbers that could be taken.
Look, as you point out, we don't have any, this polling is not what you would rely upon. But you yourself are a Republican and have worked in Republican administrations, and you know the system. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to calibrate the extreme wing of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Is it 20%, 15%? What would it be?
It's hard to put a number on it, but look, part of what we get in this poll is there's no cost to saying, yeah, I don't like what the president is doing. There's no cost, particularly when you start putting a whole series of these negative comments in there that allow people to just bloviate. But look, as I move around the country, I see a lot of angst by people who are ordinary, normal, middle of the road, you know, it should be middle America. They range from the very conservative to the somewhat liberal who are concerned about what this president is doing. And I don't find them, you know, particularly dangerous.
But the game is to demonize the Tea Party people.
Sure it is. Sure, absolutely.
And people like you and me and anybody who isn't a liberal as a kook. And I do it. I do it too. I have to admit, I got to be fair. I think these Kos people are insane. I don't think there's anything fair about them. I think they're dangerous. I don't respect them. So I traffic in that a little bit too. But I wouldn't say most Democrats are that way.
Let me defend you.
Do that.
Let me defend you. You don't spend your time obsessing over them.
No, I don't care about
them. The Obama administration and some quarters of the left wing of the Democratic Party are obsessing over the protests that they are seeing coming from people whom they would like to have sit down and shut up. And those are these people who have looked over the last year. I mean, this has not happened because of the president's personality. Many of these people like him personally. What people are being driven into politics and being driven into this movement by is a concern over spending, debt, and the power of the government, and seemingly the unwillingness of our leaders in Washington to be responsive to the people.
All right, Mr. Rowe, thanks as always. We appreciate it. Next on the Rundown, Dick Morris will take a look at President Obama and the cable TV comments.